All right. Good morning. Welcome to One Heart, One Mind, Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Michelle Ingalls, and our practitioner of the day is Relaine Clark. And I'm going to invite her to do our opening prayer and share her quote. Take it away, Relaine.
Thank you. So let's just close our eyes if you'd like and take a collective breath, feeling the presence of spirit in and of and through you, in and of and through each and every one of us. This peaceful, gentle, loving presence of spirit. And I just know that this I am that I am, we are that we are, thou art, is with us now in this presence of communion and unity with each other for this beautiful service this morning with Reverend Michelle's talk that's lovely and perfect in every way. The music is wonderful. And everyone that's here and everyone that couldn't be here, we're all together in this beautiful unity of oneness. And so it is.
So it is.
And I'd like to share these words from Louise Hay. I believe that it fits with the feeling of knowing that within us is a way of being that is the truth of us. And she says, Louise, I walk through life with the happy companionship of myself and joyfully express the goodness I am. Each day I express more fully the inner beauty and the strength of my being. So let's just take a moment and close our eyes and feel that inner beauty and strength of your own being and that wonderful companionship of being with yourself. And as we come back together again, I'll read the affirmation for this month. I live life within the freedom of God. I freely participate with God's nature and God's law. I walk in gratitude for this inner presence and power. I am enveloped in the one living spirit, which is the author of my freedom, peace, wholeness, and joy. And so it is.
Thank you so much, Relaine. That was beautiful. I love that quote by Louise Hay. Beautiful reminder. And Richard is going to do real-time music this morning. And I have to admit, Richard, I don't remember what song we're doing.
Planting seeds. Do you have anything to say about it?
Well, it's Daniel Nahmod, and it just seemed to fit the idea of letting go of what of old habits, thinking patterns and all that, and moving into the connection with spirit and planting those seeds. And we always use the seed soil metaphor, or a seed soil plant metaphor in our teaching, so it just seemed perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I got from it sort of the sense of kind of going with the flow more, stop trying to micromanage everything as though we're the most important thing in the entire universe. And in many ways we are to us, and we have to sort of go with what what's within us, what we know, but stop trying to manage the whole thing, because it'll take care of itself. Anyway, planting seeds. I've been planting seeds on the ground, watering them with my sweat and tears, scattering them all around. Guess it's what I'm supposed to do with my years. Funny thing is, I may know what I've planted, but never what will show. It always seems to be a perfect mystery. Whatever grows will grow, whatever dies will die, whatever works will work, whatever flies will fly, whatever fails will fail, what's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds, nothing more. Sometimes I still like to pretend I know what the harvest will be, but I always find out in the end it was never really up to me. Funny thing is, when I just do my work and simply trust, it always seems that life is looking out for me. Whatever grows will grow, whatever dies will die, whatever works will work, whatever flies will fly, whatever's meant to soar. Yes, I am planting seeds, nothing more. And I am only one of billions of seeds. When all is said and done, I just do what's mine to do and let it be. Whatever grows will grow, whatever dies will die, whatever works will work, whatever's mine will fly, whatever fails will fail, what's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds, nothing more. I am planting seeds, nothing more. Relax and enjoy the ride. Blessings to all.
Thank you, Richard. That's beautiful. Yes,
Mm.
Daniel Namad's songs are really,
A blessing.
he's planted a lot of seeds through his music for sure. Just waiting for a second till we're streaming to Facebook. Radio silence for a second. It's lovely to see everyone this morning. So glad you're all here. Huh. Well, oh, there we go. So, good morning again, and welcome to One Heart, One Mind, Synod for Spiritual Living's online Sunday service. So we continue this week with our monthly theme. I realized I haven't really talked too much about our monthly theme, which is pulled by vision. And so I wanted to address that this morning. And this theme reminded me of a song by Karen Drucker. You may have heard it. It's called The Call of Something More. And I think Karen's lyrics beautifully describe that feeling of being pulled by a vision. You know, the feeling that something is calling us forward. And the lyrics go, there's a storm brewing inside of me, clouds moving around my heart. Something's changing that I can't see. And here's where I think she really goes in with this important line. See if you can relate. She says, I'm stuck in what I know is safe, but not yet where I'm supposed to be. Have you ever felt that way, that you're in that in-between place? You know that something new is right there on the horizon, but you don't know quite what it is yet. And the unknown feels a little uncertain and maybe even a little bit scary, but kind of exciting at the same time, because you know something new is on its way and about to experience and express in your life. And then the song goes on to say, I feel the call of something more. I feel the call of something I've never felt before. And then another great line, which really made me think about this theme, is they say, pain pushes till the vision pulls. Can you imagine that? You know what that feels like? Which is exactly what I talked about last week when my message was focused on change. If you were listening to it or heard it as a recording afterwards. Change as the nature of life itself. And life is change. And that's one of the basic spiritual principles that Science of Mind teaches, that the nature of life itself is always unfolding. I think I said it was vigorously active and never stagnant. And Ernest Holmes, our founder, spoke to this idea in many different ways throughout his teaching. And one of the quotes that I wanted to share with you this morning is from the Science of Mind text. Let's see, did I write down the page? Well, Jim, I'll post it in the chat for you if you want to look it up later. But it says nature, or we could just say life there, because we're talking about the nature of life is change. But nature will not let us stay in one place for too long. She will let us stay just long enough to gather the experience necessary to the unfoldment and the advancement of the soul. How beautiful is that? You know, life is about this constantly unfolding and becoming. When I was doing the meditation today, I was talking about a stream moving down and expanding and expressing and gaining momentum. I was thinking of this idea of life and change that I knew I was going to be talking about this morning. Oh, and another quote that I love is by Anna Snin. I actually have it on a plaque in my bedroom. And she wrote, and I love this idea, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Isn't that beautiful? You know, we can't stay in the bud forever. Life needs to be free and to expand. And that's where we have the courage to face that, as Brene Brown would call it, the vulnerability we might feel as we step into that unknown territory. But it's also in this place that we get to experience the joy and the beauty of the blossoming itself. So in that unfolding, we are called to be brave and to let ourselves be vulnerable, to have the courage to be vulnerable as we allow ourselves to unfold and continue on this journey of life, you know. And we're expressions of this dynamic nature of life. It's who we are. And if we become complacent and unwilling to change and grow, I'm sure it's only me, I'm sure nobody else ever does that here. You know, but life will give us that cosmic nudge, you know, all right, get going, keep us moving. And if we don't pay attention to the cosmic nudge, then we get the cosmic 2x4, and nobody wants the cosmic 2x4. I remember one time, my youngest son, Abraham, this was a while ago, but he was rear-ended in his car 3 times in 1 year. And someone said to me, maybe life is trying to tell him that it's time for him to move forward. And I recognized, have you ever heard something and just recognized the truth in it? As soon as I heard it, I knew it was true. He got the cosmic 2x4. And has that ever happened to you when you hear something and you just intuitively know that it's true? We were talking about this at our Tuesday night class the other day, how when you hear something, if it resonates in you, it's that intuitive knowing is bubbling up and recognizing the truth in something. And it's this kind of intuitive knowing that is so important for us to pay attention to as we're called to that something more, even if we don't know exactly what that something is, sometimes you just have to start moving, stick your feet in the river of change and start moving, because what I said last week, I think is really true. We can either change through pain and suffering, or we can change through inspiration and joy. And as I said last week, I know which I would rather use to change. So this week, the message is focused on effective ways to stay open and willing and to embrace change through inspiration and joy. And we have some beneficial tools that we can use to consciously step into that state of openness and allowing. I used to always call it surrender, and now I prefer to call it allowing, because that is when we stop resistance and resisting and we just allow. I remember when I first started learning about science of mind, learning that the spiritual principles and the spiritual practices can be applied to my own life. I was intrigued by the idea of being empowered to demonstrate the things that I really wanted to have in my life. And I have to admit that at this stage of the game, they were mostly material things, cars, money, houses, even relationships. Not that there is anything at all wrong with that. They make life wonderful and they contribute to our experience of life. But it didn't really take me long to realize that these material things were really just side effects of a greater transformation that was beginning to take place within me, and I was intrigued by the idea that I could actually participate with the nature of God, with the nature of life, to change my own life. Because up until that time, I kind of felt like I was at the mercy of life, the hubris of the gods, that I was a victim of conditions and circumstances. And now I was beginning to learn more, that it was in my unity with life that I was empowered, and then by the time that I'd gone through, several classes and my perception of life had begun to dramatically change, I'd become a practitioner and I was actually teaching the science of mind principles myself. I began to realize that there really is only one prayer that I need to pray to demonstrate all the things that I think I need to have in my life to be happy. And that one prayer didn't have anything to do with anything in the outside world at all. The prayer was all about connecting to the spirit, the God self. We sometimes call it our authentic self. And that's right where I am, within me and within you. Everything is sourced here. And that one prayer is always to unify or align with the nature of God within me, within you, and to now allow God's nature to become my nature, to become our nature. Because I realized we don't actually demonstrate what we think we need. We demonstrate who we are. We demonstrate the spiritual principles that we embody, our state of being. And we demonstrate what we think and feel and do. We demonstrate who we are in the world. And we demonstrate the consistent pattern of our thinking and feeling, which becomes our state of being, which becomes how we show up in the world. And this is really the only prayer we need, that I am one with, that I embody love, prosperity, peace, health, compassion, and all of the things and the ways that I want to show up in the world. And from that place, everything that is needed to support me in demonstrating those qualities of God, to bring heaven to earth, shows up in my world. And it was at some point in my spiritual evolution, tongue-tied here for a minute, I happened to run across this idea that was introduced to me through Michael Beckwith's teaching, who is the minister and founder of Agape. And I'm sure you have heard of Michael Beckwith. And he called it the 4 stages of consciousness, or I think his wording is the 4 kingdoms of consciousness. I think that's how he termed it. And as I learned about these 4 stages of consciousness, it gave me an even greater understanding of how we embody and participate with the truth of our divine being. And I began to learn at a deeper level, an experiential level. I could feel it, that I didn't have to wait for external change, for things in my outside world to change, to create change in my life. That as an expression, or I like the idea of an extension of infinite mind, of divine mind, I was always unfolding and always evolving, and I didn't have to wait for anything in the external world to change. I can participate consciously with that unfolding by changing internally, because however I show up internally, whatever I align with and embody is going to express in my world. So as I learned about the 4 stages of consciousness, I realized that they can kind of serve as a mirror to see where we are in the different areas of our life. And like any way that we try to organize and understand our life and the way things work, these 4 stages are only as valuable to us in our daily lives as we allow them to help us understand our own human journey. Where am I in this world, and where do I want to go? And there's lots of different methods, but this one I found particularly valuable. So as I go through the 4 stages, I'm just going to briefly kind of dive into them just a little bit. Try and see if you can tell what stage you might be experiencing in the different areas of your life. So the 4 stages, and I think Jim's going to put these in the chat as well, are stage 1 is the victim consciousness. It's where life happens to me. It's an easy way to remember it. Life happens to me. Stage 2 is the manifester consciousness, where I begin to discover that I can actually happen to life by me. I have some power here. The third one is the channeler consciousness, where we understand that life is actually happening through me. It's a little bit further along our understanding of how life moves through us and demonstrates. And the 4th stage is being consciousness. Life happens as me. We call this the mastery stage, and we'll get into that a little bit more. So let's start off with stage 1. Stage 1, victim consciousness. Life happens to me. And in this stage, we think of life as happening to us by external forces of the world, that conditions and circumstances define who we are. Maybe we think of God as something outside, sitting up in the sky directing traffic, the old image of God, or a God that answers some people's prayers, if they're good or he likes them, and other people's prayers he doesn't answer, or this is the stage where we tend to think of our genetics as the only factor that determines our healthy bodies, or our economic status as why we will have certain advantages and disadvantages compared to others. That's the stage where we really feel like everything is happening to us, like life is pushing in on us. Stage 1 says that something outside of us does something to us and has the ability to determine our destiny. That's the victim stage. And one of the things that I discovered about this stage, and I've discovered it over and over again because I have to remind myself, is that sometimes these patterns are so hardwired, so deeply ingrained in our brain and our body, that we have to really make a sincere and earnest commitment to change them. And at the beginning, it really takes our conscious effort. But as we do it more and more, and it becomes more a pattern, it becomes easier and easier as we practice. And we'll talk about a good practice to help us shift our life perspective and to move into greater empowerment. So let's move on to stage 2. Stage 2 is, oh, this was a fun stage. It still is, because I still embody it or encounter it from time to time. Life happens by me. You know, it's also known as the manifestor consciousness. And this is when we begin to shift. Here's when we learn that our thoughts and our feelings and how we show up in the world are programmed in us, and that we can change the program consciously. This is a really important stage. Well, they're all important, but this one's really important because in this stage, we begin to realize that we're empowered to change our lives, that we're not at the mercy of some outside force. We're empowered to participate with a universal presence and power that's right where we are within us. We're empowered to change or reprogram our perception of life. And as our perception of life changes, our beliefs change, and ultimately our experience changes. And here's where we really begin to learn that there are universal principles and a universal creative law that we are always participating with, and that we can do it in a very conscious and deliberate way. You know, infinite mind and infinite mind in action, or principle into action, into demonstration. Here's when we really start to get a handle on how empowered we really are. And this is the stage where we start doing things like creating parking places, and where things sort of start to fall in place that previously seemed really unworkable or confusing. You know, relationships might become easier because we're not pushing back against them or blaming. You know, we're coming to a place of love and union, you know, and it's also in this stage that we develop the ability to stay aware of our thoughts and our feelings so that we don't fall back into those old patterns. And, you know, this is the stage, this might ring true for you. This is the stage where our popular culture thinks of as metaphysics or the law of attraction or any of those kinds of things. It's the stage that popular movie, The Secret, addressed. It's a very important stage in our spiritual development. You know, we begin to use our imagination to stretch and to visualize something more and greater. And we begin to see the results in our spiritual practices. You know, it's exciting and it's really validating too. You know, it validates, we start seeing results from our spiritual practices. It validates, oh my gosh, this stuff is actually working. And then we move on into the next stage, in stage 3. And this is where life not only happens by me, but it happens through me. This is called the channeler consciousness, you know, and it's where we realize that we are vehicles or instruments through which spirit moves, God, spirit, whatever name you like to call that presence and power, divine mind, you know, and it's called the channeler stage because something happens through us, and we're the channels for that something, you know, and we begin to embrace the fact that life is always in session. It's always happening. And we can allow it to bring us our good by simply letting go and getting in the flow of it. Again, I come back to that meditation I did before the service where I talked about just letting things flow, just going with life. You know, we begin to recognize that life, God, spirit, intelligence, order, beauty, the infinite, all of these things are really right where we are. They're already within us. And as we allow them to move through us, and this presence knows how to demonstrate them better than we do, we just let that go, and they do demonstrate in our life. We become them in our nature. We're already them. We align with who we already are. We could say that we just yield to the goodness and the richness of life. And we understand that this presence is infinite. It's the same yesterday, today, forever. And that we're the ones that have to change to embody the experience more fully. You know, when we pray, when we do our spiritual practice, it isn't God or spirit or the presence that changes, it's us. You know, it's us. Just like that stream flowing downhill, you know, it will find the path of least resistance. So we let go of our resistance and we let it flow. And our individualized mind becomes that universal mind. and opens to that divine flow, and it's always good. And I had another Ernest Holmes quote that I found that I thought really embodied this idea. Let me see if I can find it here. I've kind of given up on the idea of posting all of my comments because it's too hard to toggle back and forth. So I'm just letting our Jim today, our Zoom manager, post it in the chat for you. But the quote is, and I love this really speaks to it, I think. If we could stand aside and let this one perfect life flow through us, there it is, we could not help healing people, including ourselves, I would say. And then he goes on later in that paragraph, he says, we must forge everything else. Oh, I'm sorry, I misread. We must forget everything else and let our word be spoken with a deep inner realization of love, beauty, peace, poise, power, and the great presence of life at the point of our own consciousness. Oh, I just love that, and that's what happens when we do affirmative prayer, the science of mind treatment. And we'll get to that in a minute, but we align with and come into and embody that which is already there, and we just let it flow. But finally, we're at the final stage 4, and life happens as me. And this is known as being consciousness. We think of it as that stage of mastery where we just are in that presence, and this is a profound state of being. And probably everyone, whether you recognize it or realize it at all, you've been there at some time or another in your life. And it's so much of an experience that it's difficult to describe. And also because it's uniquely experienced by each of us. It's experienced differently by every one of us. And it's the infinite, that which is never born, never dies, and it's expressing as us. And at this stage, we become aware of our own infinite and eternal nature. And we feel connected to the presence of this one infinite life, and really to all life, because we're all living within the circumference of this divine life, this state of mastery. But even when we think of this being the state of mastery, it doesn't stop here, because life is infinite, right? And so it's always unfolding and moving, maybe not on this plane, but on some plane, we're still expanding and growing and experiencing the new and the unfolding all the time. But this truly is the place where we experience that conscious union with God in our human experience. And here's where we're really called to a greater expression. And as I think I said this last week, we might even call it a responsibility to bring heaven to earth, to bring the presence that is within us out into demonstration in the world. And I think it's really important to note that these stages aren't linear. We don't achieve one stage and then move on to the next. They're actually cyclical. We can actually be in one stage in one area of our lives and in a different stage in another area. For example, I might be in stage 3 in my relationships where love just flows through me and things come easily and I communicate effortlessly and things are great. But maybe when it comes to financial prosperity, I still might be functioning in stage 1, thinking that somehow or another my supply comes from the outside world and that there's never enough. You get what I'm saying? Maybe I haven't been able to embody that idea that God is the only supply and to step into that spiritual principle completely. We go through linear experiences. And as I was saying before, here's where we become more conscious about these old patterns as they crop up, because now we can recognize them and go, oh no, I'm not going back there, and move ourselves into a greater experience of where we want to be and embody that, because it's already within us. And I'm sure that if you're on this call and have been around Science of Mind for any length of time, that you probably know the most versatile spiritual practice or spiritual tool that we teach in Science of Mind is our form of affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment. because we are treating our mind, which is the instigator to how we feel and how we show up. And science of mind treatment brings together all the basic principles of the science of mind teaching. You know, we draw into our mind and to our heart and our felt experience, the experience of God. We go from recognition to unity, unification, and then we move into a realization or an experience of the qualities of the divine that we want to express in our life. And we sit in that and we activate this creative law. And we feel the oneness and the truth, the conviction of that which we want to draw forward. And we open up then through the experience of gratitude, because gratitude is a creative force and energy. And when we go into that, we just go, oh, yes, that's true. We receive, what is it? Dispenza says that gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. I love that. And then we let go of thinking that we need to make it all happen, because we don't. We just relax and we let go and we let the spirit flow through us without resistance. We let go of the resistance and we just let it flow, just like that gentle stream. And as I mentioned earlier, when I first started studying the science of mind, it was with the hope of manifesting conditions and stuff in my material world. That may have been your truth as well. And it didn't take long for me to discover that the purpose of affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment, is to free us from our own limited ideas and beliefs, to think that somehow or another I was making these material things come into my life, you know. And it took, what spiritual mind treatment does is it moves us into that internal journey that I was talking about earlier, that is the source of the true peace and love and prosperity and joy that brings about the side effects of all the material things that we need and want to experience in our life. Again, absolutely nothing wrong with this. Makes life wonderful when we have all the creature comforts of life. And when we have ours, we are not keeping anybody from having theirs. We are actually an example of what is possible. And we can use this spiritual tool of spiritual mind treatment to free our minds and lead us into the freedom that's necessary to express and to experience the goodness of life. Remember, we've talked about freedom for the last couple of weeks, about how life has to be free. We can't be bound by anything. And science of mind allows us to let go of any of the limiting beliefs and things that are binding us through our perception so that we can move into a greater state of being. And I've learned to use science of mind treatment as my go-to tool. You know, it always makes me stop. It always makes me pause and remember and connect with my divine nature, and aligns me with that goodness of spirit. And it does it in not only my thought, but in my feeling, and that puts me into action. Everything is in service to that alignment, to that oneness, to that unity that I feel with spirit. So this week, I invite you to use science of mind treatment as your go-to tool for creating that shift in consciousness that we need to demonstrate our good, because we demonstrate who we are, how we feel, our state of being. And that state of being is a spiritual principle, you know, and if you don't know how to do spiritual mind treatment, I'd be more than happy to teach you. And we have classes that teach the process as well. And I know that there are a lot of practitioners in our spiritual community who are also willing to teach you how to do spiritual mind treatment. And I know that they would be delighted if you reached out to them and asked for their support, either to just pray for you or to teach you how to pray so that you can do it on your own. It's such a valuable tool to embrace and to allow life to move through you, to move into that stage 3 and ultimately that stage 4 of just letting life move through you, and to drop the resistance and just let it happen. You know, I would say that probably spiritual mind treatment focuses mostly on that stage 3 and 4, which are powerful and creative states of consciousness. So let's do a little bit of spiritual mind treatment right now. I'll do spiritual mind treatment for all of us and for all of life. So let's move into Taking a nice deep centering breath in and knowing that God is all there is, spirit, God, the divine mind, the infinite presence, the creative power that is moving in and through all life, including us, for we are one with this power and presence, and we can use it in a conscious, unified way. And then I speak my word into the powerful, capable hands of law. I announce into spiritual law that there is a shift in consciousness, a new way of being in alignment with the power and presence of good within each and every one of us, within all life, everyone that's on this call, everyone who's not on this call, with all of life, that there is a shift in knowing who and what we are and what we are empowered to draw forward into our human world, into the world of form. We are empowered to know the goodness that is our source and to draw it forward in a greater and more expansive way into the world. And that good is love and beauty and compassion and kindness and prosperity and health and vitality and a momentum of life that is unstoppable. And this is the new reality that we expand into and announce into creative law that brings it into demonstration and experience into our world. And I am so infinitely grateful for this, for the ability to participate, to play with this natural law, this natural goodness of life demonstrated through a natural law, and to just be able to play with it and experience it and enjoy it and be it. So I just relax in knowing that all is well, that I have set creative law into motion and that it has no choice but to demonstrate in my life and in your life and in all life. So I just give great thanks. I allow it to be. I relax, I let go, and together we say, and so it is. And so it is. Whew, I feel a little parched almost. I have to take a drink of water. Lots of words came out. So this is our time of conscious giving. Let me take a little sip of water. Or tea. It would be very brown water. So this is our time of conscious giving, and let me get up our ways in which you can give financially to our center. And I'll share them with you, and then we'll do our affirmation. And to keep in mind that our center depends on your support in every way, in showing up, in giving financially, in being a part of this community. And I have to say, we've done an amazing job being a part of a community in an era where we haven't been able to get together in physical form yet. So thank you all for all of your efforts in showing up and being present. And here are the ways in which we can give on Venmo or Tidely, or send a snail mail check to Jim Massifus' address. He's our assistant treasurer, and he deposits them right into our One Heart, One Minds bank account. And then I invite you to imagine that you're holding your gift in your hand over your heart, however you like to hold it, and know that as you give, this is what is returned to you. Remember, I was talking about how we embody spiritual principle, that it becomes the state of our being, and generosity, love, that power that we get when we give a gift to someone, and we stand in the joy of it, and just there is a sheer joy in giving and receiving. And now we're giving. Stand in that sheer joy of giving and say the affirmation with me. I recognize that my gift is an instrument of the energy and love of God. As it flows from me, it uplifts and advances all life, including mine. I give and receive joyously. I'm so grateful. And so it is. So Leslie, do we have any announcements?
Good morning, everyone. Tomorrow evening, which is Monday at 6 o'clock, we have our prayer group that gets together to do prayer work for the prosperity and the well-being of the center. So if you're interested in doing that and are ready or not participating in the group, please feel free to do so. Reverend Michelle sends out the Zoom link on that, and it's also in your weekly newsletter. And then on Tuesday evening, Reverend Michelle is going to be discussing a Ernest Holmes essay from Living the Science of Mind called Simple Acceptance, and that's on page 309 of the Living the Science of Mind. A reminder, if you make purchases on Amazon, to do it on Amazon Smile, and hopefully you have named our center as a recipient of the donations that they give on each of those purchases. And for those who are interested in what the camp fundraising is doing for the headquarters wanting to purchase the camp retreat, it has now raised $750,000. So that's 150,000 more than they had about a week ago, I think, when I announced that. So,
I'll send out that essay too for Tuesday night, by the way.
Pardon?
I said I'd send out that essay. So in case you don't have the Living Science.
Okay, great. Great. So you don't need to worry about having the book because Michelle is going to send you those pages so that you can read them. And that's the end of my announcements.
Thank you. Wonderful. And let's see, Lisa, you're going to do the benediction, you said, and then we'll sing our closing song after.
Okay. Maybe we could take a second with one breath to recenter into that spiritually central place from which all good arises, including the joy and gratitude that I feel for the service today and for all of the contributions within it, Richard's music and the opening prayer, and blessings to Reverend Michelle, who consistently every week brings to us the comfort, the teaching, the support, the encouragement to consistently open ourselves to spirit and to being a part of creating heaven on earth as we move through our life, knowing that life is just this moving movie that takes us up and down and around and through everything. And so having the service and Michelle's strength to ground us and support us in wherever we are at any moment is a blessing that cannot be overthanked. And so I release my word of blessing to all of us and everyone who is participating in this service and being a part of one heart, one mind. And I release my word into the law by saying, and so it is.
So it is. Thank you, Lisa. That was beautiful. Really appreciate that. And we're gonna end today with loving kindness. You know that Karen Drucker song? May you be filled with loving kindness. And I'll put the words up, and I'm gonna mute myself so I can sing loud.
Me too.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. And may I be happy. May we be filled with loving kindness. May